All right, guys, thank you so much for listening. Again, this is our interview with Linn Boyke. Now, sorry, Boyke. Boyke. The Y is silent.
It doesn't matter to me. You can call me anything you want. I care less.
Sorry, Linn. Okay, so just before we went on break, we were talking about a couple different things. We were talking about a couple of your 10 rules, and we want to get into the 10. But first, I just wanted to be clear about something. So a bit ago when we were talking about making content, and not just online, though that's kind of the new thing these days, right? But even stuff like Caesar Show and all that other good stuff, it's hard. It's hard to find that middle ground between, of course, newer trainers should be making content just to get seen and like make people aware that they even exist. But at the same time, a lot of people will take your content out of context, make mistakes with it, and then it's like, well, what hand did I play? Like, how responsible am I for that? Maybe this dog, was mistreated or miscorrected or something. So I guess my question to you is, would your middle ground be make sure you're making content for the new trainers, but definitely make sure that you're clear with every piece of training footage that this is this particular dog in this context and everything else, and you should consult a trainer before just trying to like copy me?
Absolutely. As far as the way I do it, yes. My first contents was way overboard. Halfway through, I'd post in, don't do these, don't do that. And so I think just doing it once at a minimum for me, and then and explain as much in the post itself about the situation and the dog and why it's different is very important for me anyway, because I feel guilty if somebody does something they saw me do with a dog. Oh, my dog does that, but it isn't doing that. It just, they misinterpret what the dog is actually doing.
Right.
And then they harm the dog or the relationship.
Right.
For newer trainers, my biggest philosophy is learn, practice, master, begin again.
Right.
And I think that the social media has everybody so focused on social media,
right,
that they can't focus on learning, practicing, and mastering. I think being seen on social media is not even secondary to what should be important to trainers. Learn your craft. Start over again.
That's such a huge point, because I spent me and Mariano have been training for years, but we still aren't good at social media because we're actively
just
working with dogs every single day,
stuff.
Right?
Yeah.
And I remember even before I had to make sales, or even before I was able to just train dogs, for our facility and just train in the background. And there was no time limits. I would just train as much as I wanted, or if I needed to work that dog 4 times that day, I needed to do that. And there's this ability to grow where you're not under stress to be seen. You're not under stress to get likes. You're not under stress to, you could just practice. And yeah, I can see how a new dog trainer doesn't get that privilege anymore to just practice without having to look like a pro, or having to look better than you are, or having to look.
Well, look at how many takes we've done here, just for technical issues alone.
Yep.
Okay. And then people want the right angle of their face, the right words said. So they take many, many takes. And I know that just me editing the footage so that it looks, so you're not seeing anything fake. You're seeing the problems that I'm having. You're seeing it takes a lot of time. I don't see how new trainers have any time, even if what they do with social media is half the time that I spend. That's a waste of time right now. Get your skills, and everything else should follow. But we feel like we're far behind. So a lot of these people really don't have any experience, but they're taking other people's content, rewording it, and putting it on theirs as if they said it. I mean, there's a whole
it's a whole new market now. Like it's weird to where being good at social media is like its own thing now. Even if you don't have necessarily some other skill, just being good online is
there are people who
what do they call them, influencers or whatever. Right.
Which 30 seconds on TikTok. Here you go. This is how you do it. What?
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
And like I get it in a way. Like I understand it's the new world. Like but I think I understand where it's kind of like people. It's almost like the if you have time thing. It's like, yes, make content, obviously, but don't sacrifice training time to make the content, right? And another thing that you said that was, I know, and another thing that you said that was really interesting to me was we kind of have this like this running joke of we'll talk about jujitsu a little on the podcast just because
always jujitsu.
Well, but here's why though, because kind of like learning dog training, jujitsu is such a diverse skill set that it takes a really long time to go through belts. Like not every martial art takes as long as jujitsu to go from white belt to black belt. And kind of like dog training, you can see the same thing over and over again, but maybe there's a little difference, a little piece of whatever that just doesn't click until all the foundational stuff, like you talked about with Caesar in the pack, like when all the foundational understanding is there, then you make that connection. Even if you've heard it 10 times before, it made sense on the 10th time because now I have everything.
You get it when you're ready to get it.
Right. But what you said that was really interesting was it wasn't just learn, practice, master, and then it was begin again. And my jiu-jitsu coach would talk all the time about like the different belts, and it's like a white belt, you're barely learning, right? You're just kind of feeling stuff out.
See if you're going to stick around.
Exactly. And you tell me how you feel about this, like in relation to dog training. So newer dog trainers, I feel like the real delineation of a white belt versus a blue belt is you stick to one game plan that you're comfortable with and you run with it. And you basically try your absolute best to stay on those rails. Like, if my game plan in a competition is I'm going to go here, there, and I'm going to look for the triangle. That's it, just the triangle. And if this guy's going for something else, my whole game plan is just find the triangle, right? I'm not worried about anything else because I'm just not good enough yet to be able to task switch on the fly. Whereas blue belts can. All right, triangle's not there, I'm going to go for whatever. So like I notice in newer dog trainers, they're kind of like, okay, so my program is food work with puppies and this, and no matter what, if the puppy's not doing it, I'm not going to try something different. I'm going to try a different food. I'm going to try a different way, and I'm just going to stick to my program, right? Which is understandable considering that's what they know, right? Mm-hmm. Now, as they go through the different belts, they get more comfortable exploring, right? That's the practice kind of creates that mastery. And because you're good at the different things, I can go, okay, well, if this isn't there, I'm going to go for that. And if that isn't there, I'm going to go for that. But he explained, like, when you get to black belt, you're a white belt all over again. It's your job now to explore all over again, only now you have enough technical foundation to let yourself explore. Like, oh, what happens if I do this? What happens if I do that? Like, even if it doesn't make sense, like last night I was rolling with a guy who's way better than me. And on purpose, I can feel him let me put him in a bad position on purpose. I can feel him let me just so that he can
learn how to get out of it.
Exactly. Right. So yeah, man, it's fascinating. Like you don't just master, you begin again.
Well, that's what I do in everything. I do everything from the deep end because if I can survive the deep end, I can walk on water in the shallow end.
Right.
But the same thing applies where people have their one trick. That's how that girl in Colorado killed that dog because she's lifting up like she heard about pressure. The dog's spinning and fighting, but she can't see that the dog is only fighting to get out of the position so he can breathe. Mm-hmm. She perceives the dog is fighting her, and so she does it more and more. They commit to. I've seen that many, many times. Mm-hmm. You have to be able to see what that dog is actually doing and feel what the dog is feeling, so that you know what he's doing at that point. Yeah. And I might go once. Go ahead.
I was going to say that brings up a good point because I think there is a certain level of reading. Like obviously when you're younger, like I remember I never advanced much at soccer as a kid because I could barely dribble. You know what I mean? Right. So if I can't get past dribbling, how am I going to get past like what position on the field I'm at? So I was the goalie for many years because that was easy. It was linear. It was like I just stopped the ball. Right. And sometimes like people fall into the mechanical technique, but they don't read the actual room, or they don't read the situation. They don't read the dog. They don't read the intention. And I wanted to ask you this question earlier on, but then we changed points. I wanted to talk to you about the importance of dog psychology in many ways, because I started off with dog psychology, as I'm sure a lot of dog trainers my age in their 30s. We love Caesar, and we watched everything that we could. And, that introduction, especially for me as an 18-year-old, where I didn't have direction and I moved out of the house really young, and, me trying to understand my own feelings and me trying to understand my own self-control and my position and my status or whatever it is. There was something about dog psychology that I was drawn to that allowed me to, I guess, develop control over myself, right? And there's this huge aspect to that. And I guess what I want to ask you is, do you notice that there's a type of person that's attracted to dog psychology first, or is there, because like through my career I've done the dog psychology thing and I want to get back into it. I went straight into obedience because I love the technical processes and protocols that go into obedience, which it stimulated a part of me because I'm very left-brained in many ways. And then, like the sports stuff, I always assumed to be like the most instinctual, but I realized dog psychology has a huge level of instinct in it as well. Right. So,
well, it's all and mostly instinct. Dog training is conditioning.
Yeah.
And for me, so look at this. This is one thing, right? So that you understand how I think and talk, this one thing is many things.
5
so,
things. Right. Oh, that's cool.
So when I talk about the difference between conditioning and association, most people are like, yeah, I'm associated. The dog's associated that sit with food now. He's going to do it.
Right.
Yeah, he's conditioned.
Right.
Yes, there's a form of association, but I'm talking about association. It's impactful and
classical conditioning,
permanent.
Yeah.
Because of emotion. If I can't drink tequila, I can't even hardly smell limes, because when I was 14, 15 years old, I drank a whole bottle of tequila and spent 3 days vomiting it up. So that's a permanent association. Okay. Yeah. When I smell freshly mowed grass, I'm 16 years old, mowing lawns for a real estate company, listening to Motley Crue. Right. So, every single time. Right. So that's an association. That's more on the instinctual side. You can never get rid of an association, right? You can overshadow it with another one. But for me, on a basic level, dog psychology deals with more of the instinct. The training deals with more of the dog and the habits of things that we think that we need the dogs to know. But when you talk about sport, it's totally another level too. So, I don't know if I answered your question or if
it wasn't so much. I guess it was more of, I just wanted to open up that conversation of like, my brain, I always like to put things in categories and boxes. Like I like to put things in dots, and then I try and see how those dots are connected with each other. Right?
That's all I do is dot to dot.
Yeah. And
everything is a dot to dot.
Everything is a dot to dot. And I really liked that this, you this, and then it's really this, because they're within a dot, there's 5 smaller dots or 6 smaller dots.
One steak has to be cut into 15 to 20 pieces,
yeah,
right?
It's like within a star, there could be a galaxy, and with a lot of different things, and so that was really cool. That's a cool example. But I guess I wanted to know, have you noticed through the people that you teach or the people that you mentor, just what you understand of human nature? And the reason I'm asking this is because there's a lot of people listening to this episode, and people who know you, people who don't know you, people who know dog psychology, or maybe they focused more on the remote collar stuff that got big, 10 years ago, or maybe they focused a lot on, maybe they weren't there for the dog psychology influx, back 20 years ago. So is there a type of person, I guess what I'm trying to say, is there a way you can guide people to find their strength, or should someone follow dog psychology by itself and study it as its own thing and also layer other things on top of it? Or would you say that there are certain people who get certain avenues of dog training that you've noticed?
Well, I think if you're going to understand one thing, you have to understand all the different ways to do that one thing if you're truly going to be good at what you do. And so when I sit with people who I disagree with how they're doing it, I don't tell them they're wrong, and I don't tell them that my way is right. That's as far as you've gone down the vine. But I can't say that either, because then they'll be insulted. But the idea is to never stop. Never stop. I don't have any interest in doing sport dog, so I'm not going that direction.
Yeah.
I don't really use a lot of treats, but I've been wanting to. I don't have anybody to teach me the way I teach. I mean, if I go to a thing, they're just going over the numbers. I want somebody. No, if I'm going to learn the clicker, I need to learn my timing. Yeah. Okay. What is the most important part of this aspect this way of training? Well, timing is everything.
Timing and clarity, yeah.
And being clear, making sure that what you want is coming out in your actions, and that the dog is perceiving what you want, so that he can provide you with what you need. And that's the biggest part. Is it's not just. That's why I get so upset. That's why it's not a leash pressure. It's pressure. You've noticed I don't talk like Caesar, even though I was the first guy trained by him. I have my own language, and that has a lot to do with my comprehension levels, my ADHD. I'll tell you a story if you want to hear it about how things were for me in grade school, if you want to get back to it. But that's why I have to do the things that I do. And people only want to learn pressure, and mainly because it's a new word or whatever. Leash pressure, first of all, pressure, as my definition, is the common ground of understanding between all species. Now, obviously, as humans, we can define things, we can see things, we can learn multiple things, but a lion is applying pressure
to the
in the categories that I've defined a certain way, and his prey is receiving and sending back pressures and releases in the categories that I've made up for the pressure matrix. So to use pressure on any other species, you have to have a working knowledge of that species. The crocodile people, they know that the crocodile's clap is over 3,000 pounds pressure, but they can just hold the mouth like this. Right. And there's a reason why we put the shark or the dolphin inside a little hammock, so they can't get their wiggle on. Right. These are all psychology things for that specific species. So pressure, the dog is communicating the same pressures back. And if we don't see it, then it can't be a conversation, and it can't be a communication, and there will never be any cooperation. So no dog is going to grab a leash and apply leash pressure to the owner saying, I got to go to the bathroom.
Right.
Right. There's none of that. But when I say common ground of understanding, my oldest analogy is you walk up on a trail and you hear, what do you think immediately?
Get the fuck out of there. Yeah.
Rattlesnake, right?
Yeah.
That auditory pressure switched over to instinctual pressure, and I'm going to run. But the snake saw this big red glowing heat missile walk up upon them. And so then that was their instinctual pressure to throw out an auditory thing. Now, most people will say, oh, got to get out of here. And so they deflate intensity by proximity. Now, for me, there's a rattlesnake. So the pressure of curiosity, discovery, come into play. And if I'm a dumb shit, I get bit. Now I've got a high level instinctual pressure to get somewhere to get the antidote, or I'm going to die. Right. So, I mean,
I get it. I get them. I'm starting to understand matrix now as I'm getting it. What was the definition you said? You said it's the
common ground of understanding between all species.
Yes, and it's a form of communication. It's like I'm coexisting with you, you're coexisting with me, and this is how we're going to coexist by respecting these pressures that we throw out.
Right. That's right. And when you watch how you don't get to see it on all of my videos because what do you call that?
Proprietary stuff.
Yeah. So you're seeing some of it, but when I teach a dog something through a form of pressure, and the first thing I teach them is a stationary posture, and I teach them that through a combination of physical and psychological pressure. If they've interpreted it as instinctual, well, I can't continue to teach what it is that I want. I have to wait until the animal is changed into the dog and is now saying, oh, okay, this isn't something I need to be instinctual about. I need to learn about it. And now he's back into psychological.
Now, when you say instinctual, are you talking like fight or flight? Like,
right.
Got it.
So it's threat perception, threat pressure.
Yeah. So instinctual means like your limbic system, kind of like your natural fight, flight, freeze, or appease kind of responses.
That's the animal.
Well,
yeah, the animal. Got
For
it.
me, like I said,
So when an animal turns into
So-
the dog,
when he
is
slips over, it goes from the animal to the predator to the dog to the breed to the pet name.
Yep.
So where are they closest to is what I look for.
Mm.
So
Got
I'm
it.
communicating with this so-called aggressive dog that's in a very instinctual or primal state of mind and using predatory behaviors to express itself. I'm not going to talk to Skippy.
yeah, you're talking to the
Right.
animal.
Right.
Well, the animal,
Or the
you
dog.
almost have to just wait until they calm down. But anyway, getting a little bit off track there.
No.
No,
Actually, that's staying really
I'm
close on
buying
track.
your
and
course, Lynn.
It
That's
opens
all I
it
have
opens
to
a
say.
couple questions. So, I mean, my first question is going to be, we were talking about in dog behavior how so much of it is instinctual, but the big difference you were saying kind of between you and Caesar is essentially just teaching style and thought process. And I know that
And you break it down.
We're
well,
both
you break it down.
instinctual. I can narrate the process. I can show you as close to my instincts so that you can develop a reflex.
Right, which is important because, like we were talking about doing versus teaching, you have a lot of shadows, and you started the shadow program, and you have a lot of students, and so I guess my question is, how did you go about developing this process of taking instinctual like feelings and observations essentially and make them into words that other people can understand, even if they don't have that same instinct?
Well, it's because I grew up the way I did. I'm an analogy guy.
Yep.
I've got like a 5th grade reading ability. So thank God for Grammarly. I tell you what, if
I like Grammarly
wants
too.
to sponsor
Thanks,
me,
Grammarly.
my posts are amazing because of Grammarly. I would never post because I was afraid. The fear of people reading something that's like a 5th grader.
Yep.
But anyway, so I have this ability to compare, parallel, or bring an analogy. All I ever do when I work with a client is I find out first what they do for a living, what hobbies they have, and I don't actually ask them that list, but it comes up whether I'm looking at their environment and seeing what they have interest in, and I immediately start applying what they do to dog psychology,
Right.
so that they can understand that you're already doing what I'm doing, just in a different field.
Right.
And if you can take that green screen off and put it over here, then you're going to succeed. And for the most part, it really does. And so the reason why I have to come up with my own language is because I can't understand everybody else's.
Right.
But everybody can understand mine because it's clear to me.